Respected panel members, we are Group 11 and here we are presenting our web application we developed for the advanced web application development module. So here we have developed a book management application using Spring Boot framework and we are using MVC architecture here. So we have covered the user authentication, authorization, email sending, exception handling, feedback management, history management, role-based authentication. We have also used JWT tokens as well. So starting with the authentication controller, we are using a mapping type of endpoint to the users register to the system. When the function is called, first looks for the user role, which is designed to be created in the startup of the application, and then we are building the user, then we are saving the user into the database and we are sending the verification email to the user. So I invite my colleague to continue this presentation from now on.
My part covers the authentication and account activation functions inside the authentication controller. This is the authenticate method. It receives a JSON request containing the user's email and password. The controller does not handle the validation logic itself because of MVC separation. Instead of passes the request to the authentication service, which checks the credentials and generates a JWT token. The controller then returns this token as a JSON response. This token allows the user to securely access protected API endpoints. The second one is activate account. So the confirm method is used when the user clicks the activation link sent via email. The controller reads the token from the request and calls the service layer to activate the account. This ensures that only verified users can log in. Since activation logic belongs to the service layer, the controller remains clean and focused on handling the HTTP request. That's all my part. Over to you, Amadou.
Thank you, Jitmi. Let me explain first three functions inside this book control. The first one is save book. That's for the creating a new book, and it also provides the authentication object, so we know which user is logged into the system and creating the book. So it simply passes the data into the service layer, and then service layer saves the book into the database and returns ID. Then second one is finds book ID. Here it uses path variables to extract the book ID from the URL, and then it calls the service and returns the book response. And then last and a third function is find all books, and it handles this get books with pagination, and it takes the page size and parameters, and systems can return books by smaller chunks instead of all at once. And over to teacher.
Now I will explain three RESTful web services from our book container. And this is the fetch book owned by user. This web service that returns all books uploaded by the login user, and it accepts two query parameters as page and the size, and the authentication automatically identifies who is requesting, and the response is contains book's title and author, category, and the status. And here is the second function. This is for to fetch borrowed books, and this endpoint returns all the books that the logged-in user has borrowed, and the user pagination through page and the size parameters. Read all the users identified authentically, and the authentication connected user. The service returns the details such as book owner, borrowing date, and the current book status. And this is the third function, and the get. It is to fetch return books, and this provides the users to complete the history, and the controllers call the service, and the JSON response includes details of the returned books and the return timestamps and the pagination details. The next function is update shareable status. This function toggles whether a book can be shared. It takes the book ID and the logged-in user as input, then calls the service layer to update the shareable status in the database. Finally, it returns the book ID as a response to confirm the change. And next function is update archive status. This function toggles whether a book is archived. It also takes the book ID and the login user as inputs. The service layer updates the archived status in the database so that the book can be viewed or shown. The function returns the book ID as confirmation. Next function is borrow book. This function allows a user to borrow a book. It takes the book ID and logged in user as the input. The service checks the book is shareable, not archived, and that the browser is not the owner. If valid, a borrow record is created and the book ID is returned as confirmation.
In this controller, there is a method that handles the returning a borrow book. When a user returns returning a book, the patch endpoint receives the book ID along the service layer update the system to mark that book as a return. There are also approving a return book, usually handled by the admin or librarian. After the book is returned, this method takes the same information and finalize the return by calling the service to approve it. And another endpoint is this controller manage the upload in a book cover image. This one use a post request that accept the multi-part form data. It receives a book ID and the uploaded file, and the service process and save the cover image. If everything is successful, the API respond with the accepted status. Thank you.
In our system, users can give feedback for books. This was to implement the controller layer that handles feedback-related operations. This controller is responsible for receiving requests from the client, validating them, and passing them to service layer. In the MVC architecture, controller receives requests and return responses. Service contains the business logic. Model contains the data structure. The feedback controller is part of the controller layer. This method handles creating new feedback. It listens to feedbacks and validates, ensure the request body is validated. It receives the logged in user through authentication. Then it calls the service layer to save the feedback, and finally it returns the generated feedback ID. And this method is all about feedback for a specific book. This overall of my part, and also that's all about our presentation. Thank you for listening.